build prosperity that is secure and resilient, and to bear down on the cost of living and finances. Deliver through ironclad principles, and today I will set out third action that I am taking. First, on global climate change. Last week, the Prime Minister authorised the US to use UK military bases to defend its British union. It remains the case that the de-escalation of this conflict. As we strengthen our collective security, I believe we will explore the immediate pressure on supply. And the UK has now begun the release of our share of 13.5 million barrels of oil. Second, on our energy security. The last government's failure to invest in energy was a failure to protect our country. But through this action, this government is taking control of our own energy supply. Investing in renewables, lifting the ban on onshore wind, and streamlining grid connections. Running the biggest offshore wind auction in European history last year and bringing the next renewable auction forward to this July. And driving forward negotiations on the UK's participation in the EU internal electricity market. We must guarantee our domestic oil and gas industry can also
up your bum, hit that like button. It's all I do all day. It's not really.
Construction on Sizewell C, agreeing an extension to Sizewell B, and we're due to sign the contract on the UK's first small modular reactor in partnership with Rolls-Royce.
Sound a fucking terror.
So our new planning rules will unblock the development of critical infrastructure projects. I can announce today that we will legislate to implement the single field review in the next parliamentary session. And I recently wrote to industry and regulators to get them to set out their plans to fast-track that implementation in full. To the parties opposite, we like to talk big about energy security, but then vote against the very infrastructure to build it. Let me say this, it is time to put our country first. And I can confirm today that we are developing options to back critical energy projects with indemnities if their planning consent is challenged, so that we don't waste a single moment in protecting our energy security, because energy security is national security.
Yeah.
Third, on households and businesses. I know that when prices rise and income moves, people look to the government and ask, what are you doing? That's why, since the election, we have delivered and funded childcare for working parents.
Target, my own fucking older.
And free breakfast clubs being rolled out. From next week, the 2 child limit
Get that fucking line. Go on, be the first one.
K1 6K in, and another rise in the national living wage. Subscription charges frozen, train fares frozen, fuel duty frozen, and the state pension increasing next week by £575. And for businesses, £4.3 billion in business rate support. The Regulation Action Plan cutting admin costs for businesses. And the supercharger discount, followed next year by the British Industrial Competitiveness Scheme to take money off business energy bills. But I know that there is more to do. On trade, I can confirm to the House that we are aiming to conclude negotiations with the EU this year on the sanitary and phytosanitary agreement, which will directly impact food prices in our shops. And I have asked officials to look at where there are targeted reductions to agri consumer
rapid
protection measures.
de-escalation of the wrong
And
way.
since my last statement,
Put
the
the fucking
Competition and
prices up.
Markets Authority has stepped up their
We'll just
statutory
start burning
monitoring
our
of
houses
fuel
down.
prices. And I will update on fuel pricing within the next month.
Christine, my Sally,
To monitor the cost of
she
household
fucking wants to
essentials
know, man.
for both price rises and disruption.
And they
And they've
go
launched a
on, put the
market
price
study
up. Fuck
into
it.
heating oil. Today,
We're going into the fucking tent.
we are going further
Concrete
to
one.
make sure that the Competition and Markets Authority have the powers that they need that were denied to them by the previous government to detect and to crack down on gouging, bringing in a new anti-profiteering framework and
Who's on there?
considering time-limited targeted powers for CMA and this week, the Business Secretary and I will convene the Regulation Council to
Really?
discuss their work to protect
Ain't
consumers.
no fucking
Because
clue.
let me say it again, this government will
This
not tolerate
government
any
is
company
a
exploiting this crisis at consumers' expense. Finally, I want to update the House on how I am preparing
The
for this
roof is
conflict as
on
it goes on.
fire.
I
Leave
know
it,
the
but at least we
families
stay
and
fucking warm.
are worried about the impact of rising prices. I've said that we will be responsive to a changing world
Responsive.
and responsible in the national interest. And today I want to set out in more detail what that means. First, responsive. We don't yet know what the full impact of this conflict will be. So we must be agile in responding appropriately at each moment. We extended the 5p fuel duty cut, and we have pushed cheaper fuel finder, empowering people to avoid the rip-off prices and
Neither
taking
side.
down the last few filling stations to reach 100% compliance. And when wholesale kerosene prices more than doubled overnight, we stepped in with £53 million of support to those who needed it most within a matter of days. And from next week, households will benefit from £150 off of their energy bill thanks to the action that I took in my budget. With a price cap giving households certainty on their bills until July, ahead of the winter months when people use 78% of their gas. Second, we will be responsible. The spring forecast shows that the government has the right economic plan, restoring stability to our country's finances and family finances. I will not put that stability at risk. As we respond to this crisis, we must learn the mistakes of the past. The previous government pushed up borrowing,
Blame.
interest rates,
It's blame the past.
inflation, and mortgage costs with an unfunded,
The previous government, it's about you.
that gave the support
You're driving
to
the
the
fucking
most
car now,
wealthiest
and you're
of
fucking
households.
swerving all over the fucking
Between
road.
2022
Like an
and
absolute
2024, under the last government,
Tax
households
the
in the
fucking
top
poor.
income decile
Wonder
received
why
an
people's health
average
are
of
going like that.
£1,350 of direct energy bill support.
Ooh.
That left us with high levels of national debt. A cheque written then for a bill that is still being paid today. I can confirm to the House that contingency planning is taking place for every eventuality, so that we can keep costs down for everyone and provide support for those who need it most, acting within our ironclad fiscal rules to keep inflation and interest rates as low as possible. Mr. Speaker, this is not a war that we started, nor is it a war that we joined, unlike the advice of the parties opposite. But it is a war that will have an impact on our country. The challenges may be significant, but I promise to do what is right and fair, being responsive in a changing world and responsible in the national interest. And I commend this statement to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the Right Honourable Lady for the advance side of her statement. Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Lady comes to this House with an economy in tatters. She would have us believe that
that our policies would mean higher inflation, higher borrowing costs, higher interest rates, and that she would destroy jobs. All of that, Mr. Speaker, has come to pass. Her mismanagement and foolish choices have given us the highest inflation in the G7, the highest borrowing costs of any major advanced economy, with gilt yields higher than Greece and Morocco, fragile fiscal headroom, the highest unemployment since the pandemic and rising, and GDP per capita. Under this government, Mr. Speaker, we are getting poorer, and our economy is increasingly fragile and far from secure and resilient. And despite what the Right Honourable Lady has just said about payback, nothing exemplifies this government's economic story more than its approach to oil and gas.
Praise the Lord.
The utterly misguided net zero obsessions of the energy secretary have led to the absurdity of reduced extraction, whilst we see jobs destroyed, tax revenues forgone, and energy security smashed. And the greatest tragedy of all, Mr. Speaker, that in Jackdaw and Rosebank, we have fields ready to go. In just months,
She was a little bit skinny. She used to be a whore.
Jackdaw alone.
Poor old Jackdaw. Shut the fucking door.
1.5 million homes. Yet the Right Honourable Lady
Come on, people. Hit the like button.
And less oil and gas extraction,
This lady's
greater dependency, and less security. This road leads to ruin.
Does it really?
On energy, on the cost of living,
Cost of living.
on growth, on public finances.
Well, I ain't got no fucking plan on dying yet.
This Chancellor,
Definitely sexy. Definitely.
And in the face of this energy shock,
What we got
there
here?
are millions who are about to suffer as a result.
Dear occupier.
So with respect to her statement today, could I ask,
Save money.
how
Doesn't
many
fucking
fuel
like.
retailers have yet to engage with the new fuel finder service? And can she comment on the widespread reports of technical glitches and out-of-date price information? She mentions a small modular reactor planned for Wilton. But given the need, can she explain why she chose not to go ahead with the large-scale nuclear site that was signed off by the last Conservative government? And specifically on energy cost support, can I ask her, what fiscal capacity does the Right Honourable Lady believe she has to support those in need? What is her plan to ensure that any targeted approach truly reaches all those who are in need? And on the matter of targeting, in her statement, Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor criticised the last Conservative government support package for not being targeted. But what she failed to mention,
She
was
failed to
the now Prime
realise.
Minister was then urging support to the university. Indeed, he said at that time that Labour's approach would ensure, and I quote, that no household will pay any more on their bill. No consistency from the Right Honourable Lady. How is she going to ensure the support for those depending on heating oil reach those who need it most? This support, Mr. Speaker, would of course, under this government, be funded to the pensions of hard-working people. Indeed, the reduction to energy bills this April is simply being taken from bills and being dumped onto the shoulders of hard-paid
And
taxpayers.
saving the grand on the counter.
But it does not need to be this
Guy
way.
like fucking who
But
does your
it's
man.
not the critical question this.
Cushy.
Where is the control of public
I'm
spending?
not racist. Black
Where
coffee.
is the renewed resolve to grasp the welfare bill? To get people off benefits and into work? I will tell you, Mr. Speaker,
I'll tell you.
it is
I'll tell you
nowhere,
something.
because the Right Honourable Lady is a captive of her own backbencher.
Yeah.
And she has brought our economy one step from its knees. She knows it,
She
the
knows
country
nothing.
knows it, and now we must all brace ourselves for what is to come.
The girl next
Not
door.
from a position
Give
of
it to the girl
strength
next
as the
door.
Right Honourable
She goes, if I luxury, I don't want it, luxury, I don't want it. I told you so before, take it away, give it to the girl next door. Little love.
I think that statement only reveals.
That's only reveals. This is the ways of the real love. Smother that cunt with a pillow.
Mr. Speaker, in the last 20 months, we've had 6 cuts in interest rates.
6 cuts
We
in
have
interest
more
rates.
than doubled the
Still 4%, you
headroom
cheeky
compared
bitch.
with the headroom that I inherited from the party opposite.
I was like,
For
you
the
fucking
first
hundred.
time in
Oh,
6
make
years,
it up.
deficit is less
Make bread
than
50 quid.
5% of
A loaf.
GDP, and wages are increased by more than inflation for every single month that I have been
Sounds like
Chancellor of the
same
Exchequer.
since I was 5.
Compared to a record
40 years on, you're still chatting bollocks.
It is the only parliament on record where people were poorer at the end of it than they were at the
You call
beginning.
me fucking
I
poor,
refer
cheeky
my
bitch.
record to their
I got
record
fucking
any
stitches because
day
I'm
of
your
the
fucking
year.
haircut.
Now, Mr. Speaker, the Shadow
Cheers,
Chancellor says that we should act. Well, we have.
Hello, everybody.
But what the Shadow Chancellor fails
So,
to
Richard.
mention is that his party supported us being
Get that
involved
fucking
in this
hard,
conflict. Whilst we have called for de-escalation, the leader of the opposition said that we should be a participant in this conflict. The damage that would have done to our economy would have been immense, and yet they make no apology.
No apologies.
The leader of the opposition said yesterday about the Prime Minister that if he's creating a support package that is going to be done with taxpayers' money, then she thinks that we should be doing things that aren't going to cost the taxpayers' money. So on the one hand, you've got the Shadow Chancellor saying that we should do more and put in more money, and then you've got the leader of the opposition saying we shouldn't do anything. So where do the party opposite now sit on the £53 million support that we gave on heating oil? Because that was using taxpayers' money to support those who needed it most. It was the right thing to do, but now the leader of the opposition seems to suggest that that was the wrong thing to do.
Wrong thing to do.
Now, the Shadow Chancellor asked a few specific questions.
Specific.
On the cheaper fuel finder that we have introduced, more than 90% of retailers
Actually, yes,
are
fucking
now
sunburn.
signed up to it, and of that 90%, all of them are updating their prices regularly, and we, along with the Competition and Markets Authority, are chasing down the final few that haven't submitted their prices. On the small modular reactors,
What is small modular
they
reactor?
supported it. They had 14 years,
Is it that free?
not a single penny of money into
Shut up,
it,
David.
and the same is true of Cyber-C. You can't, on the one hand, say that you think that we should spend less money, and then at the same time say that we should be supporting Cyber-C and small modular reactors, because everything has to be paid for. In terms of fiscal capacity, we have more than doubled the headroom compared to what I inherited from the Conservatives. It was less than £10 billion when I became Chancellor of the Exchequer. It is now nearly £24 billion because of the actions that
I've got a
I
calculator, right?
taken. The Shadow Chancellor says that we haven't built contingency, where the exact opposite is the case. Now, the Shadow Chancellor says, what about Rosebank and Jackdaw? Well, it was because of the failure to do the work properly that it was challenged in the court. And 1 month after the previous government left office because they were kicked out, the court came back and said that we have to reconsider Scope 3 emissions. The energy companies, Shell and Equinor, submitted their plans at the end of last year. The regulators.
Sorry, keep the noise down.
This is important because the energy company came back at the end of last year with their revised plans. The regulators are now considering those, and my right honourable friend, the energy secretary, will make a decision ahead of the autumn to decide whether it is legal to go ahead with those. But we made a commitment in our manifesto to honour existing licences. It's only because of the failure of the previous government to consult that we are in this position in the first place. And the honourable gentleman, the right honourable gentleman says that if energy costs. Well, I'm afraid they had 14 years, and he was the World Secretary when these bills ballooned. So frankly, we'll take no lessons from the party opposite. It is only Labour that can be responsive to the immediate challenges because we have been responsible with the public finances, committed to our long-term energy security and committed to make the right decisions in the national interest. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Because the
Thank you
Prime
very much,
Minister said
Mr.
yesterday,
Speaker.
we have no idea how long this conflict will be, and he is not assuming it will be
What's the point
over.
about conflict over
We
there?
live in troubled
Oh,
times,
what's
it's quite right. The
just
Chancellor
fucking
said
flat.
that it may be planned
Oh yeah, the cable out of the way.
through spring, summer, and into autumn, winter. But one of the challenges of targeting
Go
support
on.
is she
Who's going to be
won't
the first one?
data that's
Hit
available.
that like
So
button.
what is she doing to make sure that the data is available to target support?
FTSE 100 down.
Not just across
0.25%.
local government and in the energy companies.
Pound against the euro down 0.27. Pound up again. £1. Only already 16. I can have one
And
minute.
so when the energy price shock came along, they said we're not going to do it.
Oh, what was doing?
So
What
they,
do we do?
in the end, had a choice about doing nothing
Energy
or
security,
providing
national
blanket support.
security.
It was that blanket support
Back
of
then.
£78 billion. What
Turn
we
the
have
lights
been
off, have a
doing
fucking
is
long fire.
working with the Department for Work and Pensions and local government and others to ensure that we will be able to target
Hello everyone.
those who need it most. But that
Who's
is
going to be the first one to
what
install?
we've already done is taking £150 off of everyone's energy
What's the
bill.
magic?
We are doing the work. The prices come down in April for the following 3 months, and we're
Offer a
long
coffee.
way off
Anyone want?
when 78% of gas is used by households.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Chancellor for advanced scientific statement, and our thoughts are also with our brave armed forces at this time. I agree that the last government's failure to invest in energy was a failure to protect our country. Today, we face stark reality where we cannot guarantee our national security, our energy security, or our food security.
Yeah.
When Liberal Democrats were in government, we launched auctions for onshore wind, and we established a green investment bank to drive down costs and quadruple
Liberal Democrats, what are you talking
the
about?
Conservative position
So dodgy
green
freaks.
investment bank has left our energy system more exposed and should be worn as a badge of
What
shame.
you need to do, right? What
To
you
shore up our energy
Stop
security and
lying.
to tackle the energy crisis,
That's what you
we
got to
Liberal
do.
Democrats have consistently
Just go with
argued for a
pretty much
three-pronged approach. First, to reduce
coffee,
energy
have a
demand by
fag,
incentivizing
chill.
households and businesses to invest in energy
And I mean,
efficiency
cigarette,
without
I
taxing
don't
energy
mean fucking.
business rate system or prohibitive upfront costs.
And I was like, come on people, eat the light bar. I'd be shy. My mother wasn't.
Especially for small businesses on our high street. And third, to provide targeted support to the most vulnerable and to those with the higher energy needs. So I urge the Chancellor to consider our proposals to create an energy security bank to offer low interest loans for energy saving improvements for households and small businesses, to reverse the cuts to home insulation programs, and to exempt business investment in energy efficiency from business rate calculations. Whilst action from the Competition and Markets Authority is welcome, it is not enough. Small businesses have been blocked from the best energy deal for years, well before Donald Trump started bombing Iran. Yet there has still been no CMA investigation into suppliers blocking access to these fair deals. So I ask the Chancellor again, will she please instruct the CMA to do this investigation without delay? On targeted support, families are fearful. Will the Chancellor consider zero-rating VAT on heating oil and LPG? Will she consider introducing a price cap mechanism for off-grid use? Will she commit to higher energy bills over the next decade by reforming pricing structures? And if bills rise to more than £400 a year, as some are warning, will the Chancellor commit to the White House and outline a broader support package so that all struggling households, or many struggling
Oh,
households,
Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. Britain never has been slaves. Like history book. Fucking hard as now, mate.
Nuclear once said it will take 10 years to
Christine, Cameron's going to be the first to weirdo.
anyone can do it. It would only come in the 2020s. Well, imagine if that Prime Minister hadn't blocked investment in nuclear energy then, and we would be able to get the benefits of it today. But you had a chance when you were in government and you
She was sitting
And
next to me
we're
in the
targeting
park.
upwards
Go on,
of
sweetheart.
onshore
Shut up, you
wind,
fucking donut.
which is also helping to bring down bills. In terms of supporting investment in renewables
Can't
and
use
energy
an abacus.
security, we have created the National Wealth Fund, which is prioritising investment in defence and also in energy security, including in things like
You can
critical
use
minerals,
AI. How do you sort out the
and
problems?
storage,
Stop
and
employing
the rollout of chargers for electric vehicles. And we've also put £40 billion into the Warm Homes Plan to help subsidise and support people to make energy improvements in their homes to reduce their energy consumption and therefore reduce their bills, alongside the Warm Homes discount, and where we have doubled the number of people who are eligible for it. On businesses, we are through the business rate consultation looking at improvement relief to ensure that if people do make improvements, including on energy efficiency, that they won't then be whacked with higher business rates. And on the heating oil, the honourable lady said we should cut VAT on it. When they increase VAT on everything. So it's a bit rich to say they want to cut it now. But we have asked the Competition and Markets Authority to do a review on heating oil, which I set out today, as well as the £53 million of support that we've put in. But there seems to be a sort of slight contradiction in what the honourable lady is saying between whether she wants targeted support or blanket support. And I would argue that the progressive universal approach that we're taking is the right one. £150 off everyone's energy bill, but then targeted support for those who need it most. Because we cannot repeat what happened when Liz Truss was Prime Minister, because a cheque was written then, and we're now paying the price with higher interest rates, inflation and taxes than we would otherwise have to have.
The first person to like, I will send a super chat to.
On property in the fuel sector, the last time there was
And
a problem with oil prices after the war had begun in the east.
6 little toss bags sitting on your tube. 6 little toss bags sitting on. And one little man tried to get them out of under where he lives. Punch him in the nuts.
The consequence, as we saw, was outrageous profiteering within the
Outrageous profiteering.
energy sector.
No.
So, can the Chancellor indicate that we're not going to follow the failed laissez-faire ideology of the party opposite and intervene directly in the market to prevent outrageous profiteering occurring in this occasion?
Thank my honourable friend for that question. And that's why we have the energy profits levy and the electricity generators levy, so that we can claw back any excess profit. And it's also why on this side of the House we believe in an active and strategic space, including empowering our regulators like the Competition and Markets Authority to ensure that the price gouging that we've seen in the past is not able to happen after the conflict in the Middle East.
So Edward Lee, the father of the house, in an attempt to try and get some consensus here, may I commend one part of the statement, and I'm quoting: "We must guarantee our domestic oil and gas industry can play a role in our energy system for decades to come." Is there not a sort of sensible, middle-of-the-way approach here? That by all means we proceed with our offshore wind in the world in the North Sea.
Come on, you working class.
But that we also have open mind about extraction, new
All right,
extraction
sign on, get
from
out
the
of
North Sea. So the Wolf confirmed today, and I was listening very carefully to what he said in response to Shadow Chancellor, that the Energy Secretary, when he considers these licenses, will have an open mind so we can guarantee our resilience in the future.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his approach and his question. The oil and gas industry play an important role and will do for decades to come in our energy system. And we very much welcome the they create, the tax revenue that they provide, but most importantly, the energy security that they offer. At my budget last year, I set out the new North Sea oil and gas strategy, which includes allowing the tiebacks or sites. Now, for the reasons that I explained, we
bullets in the fucking bodies, mate.
decision that the Secretary of State for Energy and Net Zero has to take on Rosebank and Jackdaw. But
Who's
of course we
talking?
will approach that with an open mind, because the government does
with Timothy on the leg, and there was a scandal. I can grab her and bollocks he goes.
I would say it's worse than that because it's the legacy of two awful governments in Scotland. One that made people poorer,
For a
and then
diary.
the SNP government that built the back on
Wicked
nuclear
boss.
sector, which could deliver cheaper bills to people in Scotland.
So Jeremy had.
Oh, here we go. Old Jeremy up. Coming down time.
If she brings
Here's your Prime Minister.
If she brings before the House difficult measures that are right for the country, she will have the support of the whole House. But if she is partisan, she won't.
I can say it's
She will support a basic instinct, which is for targeted rather than universal support. 4 years ago, energy bills were heading to £4,000. We are nothing like that. We don't know what the oil price will be next week, let alone this winter. But most of all, although last time we gave support to households and families,
Keep
we
the
have
lights
support
on.
by increasing borrowing.
If you can't read
We
that,
cannot
back off.
react every
You ain't
single
English.
economic shock by further increasing our national debt. So will she confirm that when she comes to the House in her budget with targeted support, it will be fully funded and not funded by increasing yet again national debt?
I thank the right honourable gentleman for that question. When the right honourable gentleman became Chancellor, it was on the back of a lot of promises that there would be no support on energy bills. But the honourable gentleman and others recognised that that position was not sustainable. But work hadn't been done on how to introduce a targeted system. So the choice was a binary choice between blanket support or no support. And the right honourable gentleman took the right approach then in ensuring that people's energy bills didn't go through the roof. But a targeted approach would be more appropriate because the top third of families under the previous approach got more than a third of the benefit. That's not right, it's not sensible. All it is driving inflation, interest rates and taxes in the future. So it's not the fault of the former Chancellor that approach was taken, but we are using this period when energy prices are actually falling because of the approach I took in the budget to ensure that we are in a position in the autumn to have a targeted approach.
Let me stop you there. No one's to blame. Push forward again. Chancellor the extent of fucking dollar.
The long list of interventions the government has taken on the cost of living, which stands in stark contrast to the party opposite, who's the worst legacy of living standards in a generation. Can the Chancellor confirm that
really poor
she takes decisions encouraging regulators to take
a tenner
and in contingency will have that same thing in mind,
King Westall.
protecting and constituent living standards
You're
while
before
also ensuring economic stability?
you live in there.
I thank my honourable friend for that question. It's why
26 minutes
what
to
we
go.
did in the budget last year was
No
so
one's
important
talking,
because
they're
in
weird.
other countries, domestic
It's
energy
still
bills
cooking
are going up now. But because of the measures that I took in my budget last November, energy bills will fall from the 1st of April, despite everything that's happening in the Middle East. But I can tell you, what would have the biggest impact on bills is if this conflict escalates, as the party opposite at the beginning wanted it to do.
Mr. Speaker, Shetland is home to one of the largest onshore wind farms in the country. The operators have paid millions not to generate electricity because of grid
Back out and electric comes over that fucking wind
or a
farm.
trial in
Who's got
relation
the fucking farm?
for communities such as ours will be one that will be mixed with some excitement, possibly. When
Let's
are
go.
we going to
I'll
hear
spin you
the
round.
details of how that will work and what it will mean in terms of reductions to the bills of my constituents?
Here we go. All eyes.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that question. On the issue of national grid infrastructure, which is why we end up paying
I'm lying.
energy that can't be used, we've got to speed up those connections. And that's why today I said about consulting on indemnities for building out infrastructure, even in the case of renewable, because we've got that national interest in getting this infrastructure built. But at the same time,
Yeah, it costs £1,500 a week. What's on our prison?
will set out more details
And all our prisons are full up.
ways in which we can
Where's
do
the
that
money
as
going?
was backed by both the Tories and Reform. And I can always state that if you were in government, our country would be right in the middle of it. Can the Chancellor set out the actions he's taking to clamp down on price gouging? And can I thank him for the £9 million that next yesterday to help
fucking
housing
boy.
districts and housing people elsewhere affected by changes in the reform?
I thank the Honourable Lady for the Honourable Friend for those questions, and thank you for the campaigning work that she's done on Baltimore and to ensure that we can properly support her community, as we are also doing with the Growth Mission Fund. But we have introduced the cheaper fuel finder to ensure that it doesn't happen by giving greater transparency to the prices offered by different fuel retailers. This is something that the British government has done in the last 14 years in the way that in France there is already a cheaper fuel finder available on all apps when you're travelling. We are introducing it because we want to ensure that our constituents have the lowest price possible when they fill up their tank.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given the current crisis, does the Chancellor regret in her first budget increasing by £150 billion over this Parliament unfunded borrowing that the Office for Budget Responsibility said at the time was one of the largest fiscal loosening